The Arab world acquired a new revolutionary star. He was a young man, only 28 years old, born deep in the Libyan desert, where his parents still live in a tent. He was Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. Since then, he's acquired a worldwide reputation as a revolutionary leader and sponsor. To Western eyes, he seems a deeply contradictory figure, passionately religious, yet the supporter of terrorists. The man who calls for Arab unity, and yet the one Arab leader who continually attacks fellow Arab presidents. Last week, he called for change in the regime in two neighbors. He's also backed what he regards as liberation movements in many countries outside the Arab world, including the IRA. Though they may look inconsistent to outsiders, he believes his own ideas to be deeply consistent, and he has pronounced his own worldview in what he's called the Third International Theory, as distinct from communism and capitalism. Do you reject communism?
Of course, if communism is the monopoly of ownership by the state, then we reject such a monopoly. We reject monopoly, whether in the hands of the state or of capitalism. And if communism means being neutral in philosophy, then we reject this neutralism because we are believers in God.
By the same token, why do you reject capitalism? Can I add to that question? Do you accept that capitalism has successfully industrialized countries and made them wealthy?
على حال الأشياء الرأسمالية مرفوضة من ناحية اقتصادية.
On the whole, we reject capitalism because it means accepting the monopoly of ownership in the economy by capitalists, companies included. And we reject this because the communism we believe in is about participation, not wage slavery. In the political setup, those who own the capital determine the politics of society. This is contrary to democracy, because democracy is the rule and authority of the whole people.
Can I ask you why you support the IRA in Ireland?
Because Ireland is a nation struggling to become independent from Britain.
I said the IRA because the Colonel is aware, I presume, that Ireland has been decades.
إذا كان تعترفون باستقلال إيرلندا.
Then if Ireland is supposed to be independent, British soldiers must be in Northern Ireland to colonize part of the country.
Could I ask you about one incident which I must admit President Sadat himself told me personally about this summer, and which was written about too, which affected the British, which was the QE2, the Queen Elizabeth liner. He told me that there was one point at which you wished to sink that ship when it was on charter and going to Israel. Was that a true story or was it a false story?
What interest does this have for public opinion in Britain?
It's a British ship. It's a famous, named after our Queen.
What was the ship doing there?
It was on charter to take people to Israel.
Then it is a part of one party to the hostilities and in conflict with the other party.
So you did wish to sink it?
I haven't come to that yet. I'm still talking about the ship and its relevance. Your questions show that you don't trust and believe what Sadat said.
You might answer me in English on this point, because Colonel Gaddafi, you came to England when you were in the army for an army course for 6 months. And could I ask you what you remember of England and what you liked about it, or perhaps disliked about it?
Yes, I attended a course. I have been in England since 1966, from April to August.
You had the best months?
I was in Beaconsfield, a village called Beaconsfield, in army school. In fact, we ill-treated in that place from some British officers. I think those officers were Jews, maybe.
But ill-treated in what sort of way?
In many ways. They ill-treat us every time.
By being rude or by being bullying or?
In their all behavior towards us, they ill-treated us. They hate us anyhow.
Is it true, Colonel, that when you came to England and you brought your tent, sorry, that you brought your tent with you, why did you do that?
To show the people in England how is our life. We are in tents because of colonization. It is the result of colonialism.
And the country is what he calls a Jamahiriya. It's run by a new system of direct democracy. Colonel Gaddafi has tried to explain his new concept of government in what's called the Green Book, dealing with the solution of the problem of democracy. His third universal theory isn't capitalism or communism, but a system of popular committees and commissions who are always referring their decisions upwards. And the Green Book says some pretty remarkable things about political systems outside Libya. Parliaments are described as a misrepresentation of the people, and parliamentary governments are a misleading solution to the problem of democracy. On parties, on page 23, he says, the party is the contemporary dictatorship. It's the modern dictatorial instrument of governing. But perhaps the most significant, the very last sentence in the whole book, realistically, the strong always rule. That is, the stronger part in the society is the one that rules. How can the new form of government you have here in Libya meet the needs of the people when there are no parties and no parliament and no opposition?
And no government also.
And no government. How is that possible?
The authority of people.
Some people would say that this is a way of disguising a one-man state.
No, vice versa.
It is the opposite. It is the people replacing one man.
How is it possible for this country to be governed without a parliament, without a government, without parties, without an opposition? Is it not true that you yourself still have ultimate authority here?
Through popular conferences, popular committees and syndicates, and the People's General Conference. This is a direct democratic way. But we don't blame the people in other countries, for they are governed by the tools of dictatorships. You cannot imagine that there is a country with direct democracy, or that there is a people's authority in the world. But it suffices that we are Jamahiriya on earth, or the only Jamahiriya in the world.
But when Sadat started peace overtures with he became, in Gaddafi's eyes, a traitor to the Arab cause. Sadat, in turn, called him the lunatic of Libya.
I have no personal feud with Sadat.
But when he calls you something like the lunatic of Libya, how do you feel about that?
He is not a doctor, and this indicates that he himself is a lunatic.
But he has made very many serious allegations about your conduct, or the Egyptians have made very many serious allegations about your conduct. Mohammed Hakel, for instance, said that you'd once ordered an Egyptian submarine to go and torpedo the QE2, which was taking then a lot of Jewish people to Israel. What would have been the effect of that on the Arab cause?
This would mean re-examining the records of that period. And anyway, that would have been a long time ago.
But did you actually order somebody an Egyptian submarine to go and torpedo the QE2?
In any case, there are many military operations between us and the enemy, and it is impossible to follow up each incident. As for the Jews, they shot down one of our civilian airplanes in flames. It was carrying more than 100 civilian passengers, half of them women and children.
But it's actually true then that as a retaliation for that, you were actually considering ordering an attack on the QE2?
There is no answer other than the one